Going to go to the Vets Bill 2444 next.
Yes, next up is House File 2444, the Omnibus Veterans and Military Affairs Budget Bill. This bill will be is agreed to be a Senate bill as it goes through the process, so we will hear the bill today, we will take comments and questions, and then we will set the bill aside, lay it over until the Senate file arrives. Chair Bliss will be flying solo on this today as Chair Zhang is unavailable to attend the committee. But thank you for being with us, Chair Bliss. Welcome to the Ways and Means Committee. Would you like nonpartisan to walk through the spreadsheet of the bill?
Yeah, if you don't mind, I just have a couple of highlights I'd like to point out on the bill before we get nonpartisan staff.
That's fine. Chair Bliss.
All right, thank you, everybody. Thank you, Chairman. This is the House Veterans Affairs Omnibus Bill. We also are a nonpartisan committee. It doesn't mean we have disagreements, and we hash them out, but we do pride ourselves in historically being nonpartisan. We were given a $5 million target, which was 1/10 of what the agencies had requested. So we've had some pushback a little bit on it. We did prioritize on this bill the ending of veteran suicide. Currently, there's 22 veterans in the United States that kill themselves every year, and that number is not decreasing whatsoever. We have around 100 in Minnesota every year that end their lives. Homelessness they've done a great job with homelessness with the Veterans Administration. They've brought it down to functional zero. We still need to continue to fund them so they don't lose any ground on that. We've increased funding for veteran food insecurity through the Veterans Meals on Wheels and through the Lutheran Social Services. And we did take the governor's recommendation for Blue Star and Gold Star families. And we have done a pension offset for the Minnesota National Guard members when they're called to active duty. It's a minor adjustment, very cheap, but it's a little something that we can show them. And we did prioritize our funds for the veterans homes to care for veterans. If you remember, in 2018, we built 3 new veterans homes. And I believe in the 2019 session, we committed to funding these veterans homes on our portion. $40 million was requested by the agencies over base this year. We were able to get them about 11 million of that, and that's strictly for staffing to get up to full staff. We did compromise with Chair Zhang on the special guerrilla units by not changing the definition of a veteran in the state of Minnesota. We still recognize their service. So that was a nice compromise we made. And with that, we can have the nonpartisan staff walk through.
Thank you, Chair Bliss. We'll ask nonpartisan to come to the testifiers table. And who would like to go first?
Mr. Chair, I'll start.
Thank you. Ms. Roberts?
Members, I'm Helen Roberts from the House Fiscal Staff, and I will do a hopefully brief walkthrough through the spreadsheet. You should have 2 spreadsheets in your package. One is labeled in the left-hand corner, change items only, and the other one is labeled detail. I'm going to walk through the change item spreadsheet, but if you have questions on the detail, just let me know. So starting, just to tell you how it's laid out, you can see there's a governor's column and then a set of columns for the House bill for 26, 27, 28, 29. This spreadsheet shows the change from base. So that's everything that you see on here is a change from the base. To begin with, this division funds 2 different agencies. The first is Department of Military Affairs, also known as the National Guard. And the 2 change items here, there's $599,000, which is the department's request for their operating adjustment. There's also a change you'll see on line 11 to the Open General Fund for Emergency Services. This is for Representative Olson's bill to add a pension offset for when the Guard is called to state active duty. And just to summarize, for the total funding for Department of Military Affairs is $57.9 million for the biennium, and this includes funding for maintenance of their training facilities, enlistment incentives, general support, and emergency services. And then moving on, the second department is the Department of Veterans Affairs, and their total general fund appropriations are $261.9 million. MDVA has two programs. The first is Programs and Services, which has a total general fund appropriation of $60.3 million. And this is the program that funds things such as the homelessness programs, the state soldiers assistance, the veteran cemeteries, higher education assistance, et cetera. And I'll begin on line 14 or 15 of the change item spreadsheet. You can start to see the changes. And the largest change item here is the $11.6 million adjustment for the veterans' homes. After that, you'll see an increase of $2.2 million for suicide prevention. And then the next line after that, you'll see an adjustment, $10 million in a reduction to the homelessness prevention programs. And the next items are all within Veterans Services Program. The first is $500,000 in an increase to the core program. That was Representative Clardy's bill. And $120,000 for the biennium for an increase to the County Veterans Service Officers Grants, or the CVSO grants. And then $500,000 for the Metro Meals on Wheels. And then after that, you'll see a series of five $1,000 one-time grants for specific legislative initiatives. This includes the Hometown Heroes program, Camp Bliss, Veterans on the Lake, Veteran Mentorship for Black Youth, and then Fishing for Vets. Beneath that, on line 26, you'll see that there's a line that's called Elimination of Direct Grants in the Base. There were two named grants in the base, and the funding has been reallocated in this bill. The first was for Camp Bliss, and the second was for the Veterans Resilience Project. And finally, the last change item you'll see under MDVA is the Veterans of the Secret Guerrilla Units Task Force, which I think the chair had mentioned this provision. It's $118,000 one time. And the last change item is open general fund change, which is for a provision that allows for education benefits for remarried spouses of deceased veterans to continue. On the last page of the spreadsheet, you'll just see the reconciliation. This division's target was $5 million over the base, so that includes both the direct and open general fund spending, and the total spending for the division is $319.7 million in fiscal year 26-27, and $320.7 or $0.8 million in 28 and 29.
Thank you, Mr. Roberts. Mr. Diebel?
Thank you, Mr. Chair. For the record, Jeff Diepel from House Research. I'll begin with a discussion of the Article 2 of the bill, which starts on page 10. Section 1 of Article 2 is from Representative Ray Rower's House File 1662, which grants access to the Department of Veterans Affairs to the DCYF agency's Maxis database to confirm eligibility for veterans homelessness services. Also on Section 10 is the first section of Representative Olson's House File 2338, which provides a pension offset stipend for National Guard service members who are activated on state active service. Moving to Section 5, which is Sections 2 through 4, I should say, are also from Representative Olson's House File 2338. Moving to page 11, Section 5 is Representative Olson's House File 1443, which increases the bonding limit for the State Armory Building Commission. That's a rather long section, so the next provision is on page 14, which is the second piece of Representative Ray Rower's House File 1622 regarding the Maxis database. Sections 7 and 8 at the bottom of page 14 are from Chair Bliss's House File 1445, which contains federal conforming changes to our state's veteran burial laws. and that's an agency initiative.
Excuse me, Mr. Diebel, could
Yes.
you just to pull the mic a little bit closer? Some members are having trouble hearing.
Okay. Mr. Chair, on page 15, the section 9 is the first section from Reverend Cha's House File 1845, which recognizes the service of our residents who were in the secret guerrilla units in the secret war in Laos. Sections 10 and 11, which begin on page 16, are from Chair Bliss's House File 2410, which allows for surviving spouses to remain eligible for education benefits if they remarry. Jumping forward to page 19, section 12, at the top of the page, is a provision from the governor's bill, budget bill, that requires Department of Administration to place plaques on the Capitol Mall for Gold and Blue Star families. And then finally, on page 19 is the second section of Representative Cha's bill recognizing veterans of the secret war in Laos, and this is the task force provision of that proposal. Mr. Chair, that concludes an overview of the policy article.
Thank you, Mr. Diebel. Member questions regarding either the spreadsheet or the bill language as reviewed? Representative Muller.
Here, did you call me?
I did.
Okay. Thank you, Mr. Chair. I'm really having trouble hearing in this room today. I'm not on the Veterans Committee. I've not been on the Veterans Committee before. I know that they do really important work, and I understand the targets that you were given made that work more difficult this year, so I can certainly appreciate that. I also come from a family of veterans. My grandfather was an admiral, and he commanded nuclear submarines. My mom grew up moving all around the country as he was stationed around the country, and my dad was drafted during the Vietnam War. I'll also just note that the Arden Hills training facility for the Army National Guard is also in my district. And again, I can appreciate the target that was given here. I think the thing that is most concerning to me is this decrease for veterans' homelessness. And I think that we can't, as a committee and as a legislature, talk about that in isolation when we're not also looking at the larger picture that's going on federally right now. The Trump administration wants to cut over 80,000 VA workers, and some of those workers process claims. So therefore, it's going to take even longer for veterans to get the benefits that they deserve and that they earned serving our country. I'm also worried about the delays and the benefits being delayed, and what that means for homelessness and for suicide for veterans. And I did note, I'm doing my research for this bill, that I understand during the committee, someone from the Minnesota Assistance Council for Veterans gave specific numbers of veterans who would be made homeless by these changes, saying that it would lead to a doubling of veterans on the state homeless registry, and made the connection between veteran homelessness and suicide, saying the suicide veteran rate is 186% higher among homeless veterans. I also think it's important to know that under the Trump administration cuts, there will be a lot of veterans who will be losing their jobs, both as those workers in the Veterans Administration, and also my understanding is a lot of federal employees are also veterans as well, and they will potentially get cut. So again, while I understand the target and the situation that we're in, I just don't think we can look at that in isolation without also looking at the larger picture of what's happening to our veterans, and just feel that that's not right. And just wanted to make that statement. I will be supporting the bill because I think it's important that it gets out of conference onto the House floor, and I hope that we can get a higher target, especially for homelessness, as the bill is in conference committee. Thank you.
Thank you, Representative Muller. Representative Nash.
Thanks, Mr. Chair. And I just wanted to ask the author, Representative Bliss, if I heard you correctly, the rationale behind making that cut was because the agency has declared that veteran homelessness is at functionally zero at this point?
Yeah,
Representative Bliss.
thank you, Mr. Chair. That's correct. And, we understand that functional zero does not mean zero homelessness. I don't want to minimize what they've done in the past and the great work they've done to get to functional zero. And that's really helped out our veterans, and we still want them to work with that, and we're not cutting it all the way down. And we would like to prioritize it a little bit more. The problem is that, again, the suicides have not decreased at all. And I think every one of us has known somebody that's been touched by that. I had a nephew, January 1st of 2022 lost his battle. So it hit home. So we need to do something to help that number. Now, again, veterans homelessness I know is important. They've made great strides, and we certainly don't want to cut it or eliminate it, but we felt that there was a time the veteran suicides was just getting $500,000 a year. We thought that should get a little bit higher priority, so that's what we did. And again, when we look at our veterans, their final tour of duty is to the veterans' homes, and we need to fund those to get them up, and that's what really took priority on our budget. And we were able to get them $11 million out of a $5 million target. And yes, I really do want to see a little bit more in conference, and we'll see where that goes.
Thank you, Chair Bliss. Representative Gomez.
Thank you. So this might be just a question for fiscal. I'm trying to look at the Veterans Homelessness Program starting on line 83. Just from looking at it, we go from a base of 12.7 million per biennium to 2.7 million. So you're cutting it 80+%. Yes, so that's a yes. I am just, it's hard to express how concerned I am about this. I chaired a division on preventing homelessness in the 21-22 session. And I understand that the Veterans Committee this year received a similar presentation probably to the one that my committee got in 2021. And veterans are disproportionately represented in homelessness, in unsheltered homelessness. If you go to encampments, if you go to places where people living outside, living in places not fit for human habitation live, those are disproportionately veterans. The only reason that we have been able to achieve functional zero veteran homelessness is because of this money. The idea that we've achieved functional zero veteran homelessness, so now it's time to cut the money that got us there, is just really beyond my comprehension. So the issue of veteran homelessness obviously it's not unique to our state. It's something that the VA federally and HUD have kind of come together to acknowledge that, this issue, it requires money. It requires federal support. So there are housing vouchers. They're called VASH. And so this is money that comes from the federal government, that comes from the VA and HUD together, and they send money to states that we then use as housing vouchers for vets. And then states like Minnesota, we add additional support on top of that housing voucher, because what is true for most people who are experiencing homelessness is that the house is part of the picture, and then, the human is part of the picture. And so these supportive services that this $10 million per biennium supports are things like referrals to mental health care, referrals to substance use disorder treatment, making sure that when you get a vet inside, they can stay inside. And so, I'm deeply concerned. Obviously, we all, the issue of suicide it's terrible to be having a conversation where we're putting these two goals against one another. And I know that we can all agree on that. But I cannot support, basically, I mean, this is gutting Minnesota's commitment to ending veteran homelessness. One of the most interesting things that I learned, I didn't know this before I chaired this committee, was that there's this thing called a by name list. And if you talk to jurisdictions that have really gotten, like figuring out homelessness, that have gotten it right, there's always this by name list. And the Minnesota VA maintains a by name list of every single veteran in Minnesota who's experiencing homelessness. They have their name on a list, they know their deal, they know where they're at in the process, they know their history. And that's the kind of attention and intensive case management that it takes to really get somebody inside. And so this is one of those things where it's like, I'm looking at these black and white numbers on this spreadsheet, and I'm seeing these red $5 million a year, and like, this means people who are inside back on the street. This means veterans back on the street. And I can't support a bill that does that, that cuts over 80% of the base funding for this critical program. Thank you, Mr. Chair.
Representative Claiborne.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. And Representative, I appreciate your work on the Veterans Committee, and I know that these are really hard choices, and I just want to shore up the idea that I believe it's an and. Having also recently lost a nephew to suicide, I know how difficult that is for families. So I see this as an and issue. But I reached out in my work on the Legislative Task Force on Aging. Homelessness was a big issue. And so I want to just let you know the words of a veteran who I reached out to asking, what does this do, right? I'm not a vet, so I said, what does this do? And the veteran responded, we are extremely worried about this. It's a disgrace that cannot be allowed to happen. I hope there will be talk against this on the House floor. Honestly, I feel the Vets Committee members did not understand what this will do. It will keep staffing out of our new vets' homes and beds empty. Vets will die while waiting for beds. It eliminates all $5 million in funding for homeless programs. Vets will die in the streets. Those are not my words, those are words of a vet. So thank you, Mr. Chair, for allowing me to share those words.
Representative Bliss.
Yeah, I just want to respond to that very quickly. The veterans' homes are in that, and we did prioritize those in here. And again, we had a $5 million number. We had a $50 million plus ask. We did, I've received the same email that's talking points going around. We did leave some funding at the base, and granted, it's not enough, I understand that. And hopefully we can get a higher number coming out of the conference committee. But at the same time, we need to focus. We need, veteran suicide is horrible, and it's not getting any better, and we need to work on that. So we'll see where we get in conference committee. I know that the Senate numbers were much, much higher. I believe they fully funded everything, which would have been nice, but we'll see where it gets. And that is definitely, and you know, veterans will die if they're not put into a veterans home and get the care they need. And we did prioritize that. And we gave them $11 million out of a $5 million increase. So thank you.
Thank you, Representative Bliss. Seeing no other questions from members, any closing remarks, Representative Bliss?
I appreciate it. I know it's a tough pill to swallow, or bill to swallow, whichever you want to say it. But we'll get there, and we do the work for the veterans, and we all are dedicated to that. So thank you.
Representative Stevenson.
Well, thank you, Mr. Chair, and I'm sorry to speak after the bill author, but just to say a couple of things, and then if the bill author wants to speak again, that's
my
totally
fault.
fine. No. There's a couple of good things in this bill. In particular, I am very happy that we're finally recognizing the veterans of the secret war. I think that is very important. It was, as has been discussed, a very challenging target for this committee. I share the concerns that my colleagues have mentioned about the issue of homelessness. It's really bizarre to hear the rationalization that the program has been so successful that now we get to cut it. I don't think that holds true. I think we're setting ourselves to undo a great success. And I think it's particularly ironic. I received a text from someone who works in this field a moment ago to say, actually, we haven't been certified as having reached zero for veterans homelessness because the folks at the U.S. Interagency Council on Homelessness that would provide that certification have been placed on leave by DOGE. So we actually haven't even been certified as having reached zero on veteran homelessness because of cuts in this area. And now we're talking about cutting further. The thing that hasn't been mentioned that I'm disappointed it's not included in here is the protections against claim sharks, which I hope that I understand is making movement in the Senate, and I hope that the bill author will consider that in conference. I think our veterans deserve to be protected from that kind of fraudulent activity. And I hope that we can reach some consensus and actually get that included. But thank both co-chairs for working on this bill. I will be a yes today and hope that it will improve further as it goes along.
Thank you, Chair Stevenson. Any other remarks, Chair Bliss?
No, I'm good. Thank you.
Thank you. Well, thank you. Thanks to you and to Chair Zhang for your work on this bill. This bill is laid over.